Welcome, people of planet Earth and all planets beyond. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Josh, and today we're going to talk about how to identify vintage Apex One sportswear. So let's get into it. So in 1989, two former executives of Adidas and Puma started the brand Apex One, and they quickly got attention when their jerseys were worn by the Super Bowl champion San Francisco 49ers. And after that early success, they continued to pick the right teams and leagues to partner with and clothe several other collegiate champion and professional champion teams over the next 7 years. Teams like the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL or the Arkansas Razorbacks in the NCAA all were champions wearing Apex One. So Apex One started really making a name for themselves in the early 90s in the fairly crowded sportswear market. Some people call the early 90s sportswear market sportswear war, where companies like Starter, Logo 7, Nike, Adidas, Champion, all of these guys were competing in a booming sportswear environment where fans were trying to wear their favorite team's gear more and more. Apex One probably reached their apex in about 1994 when they clothed the Arkansas Razorbacks for the Collegiate National Championship, and they did a bunch of stuff with the NFL for the 75th anniversary and Super Bowl, and attracted the attention of a larger company, older company. You might have heard of them, Converse. Converse was looking to expand their footprint out just from tennis shoes and sneakers and looked for a sportswear company, and Apex One had caught their eye. Having about $100 million in revenue that year, Apex One looked like a fast-growing giant in the industry. Unfortunately, about 1995, mismanagement and turmoil within the company really collapsed their sales. They could not even deliver on a lot of their orders and lost a lot of retail contracts because of it. This was sort of a mess for Converse, though they did eventually finalize the deal. By 1996, Converse decided to close down Apex One altogether. Now, this makes identifying vintage Apex One fairly simple, because if it says Apex One, it's older than 20 years, which is our current definition of vintage. Because they only lasted from about 89 to 1996, there are only about 7 years of production at all. So anything that you find is vintage. But there are plenty of other pieces of information that would be helpful for you to know when trying to identify them. Now, for the first element we're going to talk about, let's talk about where Apex One produced their products. Most of their synthetic textiles like nylon and polyester products were produced in the Asian Pacific, countries like the Philippines, Hong Kong, and China. While their t-shirts, basically anything that was made of cotton primarily, was sewn and knit from the USA. Hats were also made primarily outside of the United States, but you might find some that were produced in the United States as well. Now, here are some of the tags you might find out there. Each one of the professional leagues had sort of a tag that was associated with it. NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, even the college had a special tag that was sort of designed specifically for it. The logo largely didn't change during Apex One's life, but you do see a few variations between different tags and such. A common feature of a lot of early 90s sportswear brands were these reoccurring designs. Logo 7 and Logo Athletic had them, Starter had them, and Apex One also had them. They were specific designs that sort of were their trademark in some sense. Now, there were certainly more designs than just these three, but these are probably some of the most notable of their designs. Specifically, let's take a look here at the spike design. This spike design was probably one of their most notorious and interesting notable designs. And there's a lot of different sports teams with this design. It's really cool, and it's typically on the higher end of the Apex One value. Next, you have the wave, just like this one right here. This has sort of got this wave pattern. This is a Cowboys like jacket. They actually had an exclusive deal with the Cowboys and made a lot of their on-field stuff. But here we see the wave pattern on this one. Not as popular as the spike, but definitely one that was recurring and used quite often. Another one that was really interesting was this star design. This star design I thought was really cool, really looked good on teams like the Phoenix Suns. Obviously, star, sun, made a lot of sense, and it looked really cool. This one is one of the more notable ones, probably a bit more popular than wave, though maybe not as popular as the spike design. Definitely has a lot of fans out there, and some of these go for quite a bit of money. Now, speaking of money, the resale range for one of these jackets is about between $50 and even in some cases as high as $350. The higher you go, the more better condition it has to be. New with tags obviously makes a big deal, or the more rare the design and team. And maybe if that team did really well, maybe just recently won the championship or is about to, the prices of those will obviously spike more. But the average resale price of an Apex One jacket or shirt is typically quite a bit lower than starter, which makes it a fantastic alternative if you're looking to get a vintage piece of gear from your favorite sports team, because typically the Apex One stuff is not nearly as coveted as, let's say, starter is. So if you want to get a good deal, Apex One might be the place to go. Now, unfortunately, Apex One did not survive long enough to give us more designs and keep up with some of the different changes and additions to teams, but there are plenty of pieces out there. There are thousands literally on eBay right now, just waiting for you to buy them or find them out in the wild and resell them to someone who is interested. Now, because Apex One is not nearly as iconic or as in demand as companies like Starter, Champion, Nike or Adidas, the fraud or fake risk is quite low, generally speaking. I've actually never personally seen a fake Apex One piece, so I think you'll be fairly confident, fairly safe out there buying just about any Apex One you find. I hope some of this information was helpful. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.